Hey, what's up, everyone? Sean here with Blue Ridge Silverhound. And I wanted to take some time today to talk about why we should care about 2025 coinage. It's kind of interesting year from the talk really early on, right in February. The president said we're going to do away with the Lincoln cents, and while there's no real indication that we're seeing that right now, that's going to lead to some further speculation on down the line. It's not as clear cut as just the president just saying, wagging his finger around like this and telling it like it is. There's a lot of steps and direction that has to be followed before we get there. So that was kind of an interesting, very thought provoking type of thing that has happened here in 2025. But we cannot forget what's going to be happening next year in 2026. The semi-quincentennial event, the 250th birthday, essentially, of our country, is coming up next year. The U.S. Mint has a whole just soiree of different really cool products that they're going to be releasing. And it's not just going to be stuff that you can buy off the US Mint, although I'm going to venture a guess that it's going to be about as action packed as what you can imagine. If you can imagine the last bicentennial event in 1976, if that were occurring today at a much grander scale, they're going to pretty much throw the kitchen sink into the equation. And we're talking about just up and down the board, different variants of all of the popular coins we're going to be seeing with dual dates on them, new designs, and all that. Not to mention all of the new circulating coinage that's going to either have modified date designs on the coins or total from the ground up redesigns. 2026 is shaping up to be kind of a banner year for the coin collecting hobby and industry as a whole, which might have some pretty big ramifications moving forward beyond 2026 when it comes to this hobby. Because, we need younger clientele in the business, in the hobby. And while we're seeing that more today than we did 20 years ago, we need that to be amplified by quite a bit. All right, because a lot of the money and where it's being injected to is still going to be kind of like that old money, the old heads, the old dealers, the old collectors who maybe might be in their 40s, 50s, and then upwards. But what about some of the younger demographic, 20s, 30-year olds? It's going to be kind of a where the rubber meets the road event. It's something that has to be done. I think 2026 is going to deliver on that in a big way. Advertising going to be all over the place for what the U.S. Mint is going to be promoting next year. But talking about 2025, okay, there's a few things that I did want to address. Number one, every time I talk about 2025 coins, whether it's updating the Lincoln Cent production numbers, talking about the discontinuation of Lincoln Cents, the nickel speculating to be the next one on the chopping block, kind of like that balancing scale effect of we could continue to produce Lincoln Cents and Jefferson nickels as long as we continue to be running into black on dimes and quarters, because they don't cost nearly as much, and that's kind of like where the balancing act lies. One of the biggest things that I get a lot of is, here we are, we're 5 months into the new year, and I have yet to see 2025 coins. There are even folks that are saying I haven't even seen a 2024 coins. And I'm telling you, regardless of where you're at in this country, if we were trying to look for 2024 coinage, you should not have that hard of a time. By now, the circulation patterning and all that stuff should be widespread. From here in the lower 48 to Alaska to Hawaii, and I'm gonna venture to guess maybe Canada and Mexico, they're seeing 2024 coins. Now, the rate of disbursement and circulation of the current year of coins, 2025 is a little bit different. Okay, there are these 12 main houses all throughout the United States called Fed Reserve banks. There's 12 of them, and so long as you live as close as you possibly can to any one of these Fed Reserve banks, and I'm going to name all 12 off here, you're going to have the best shot at finding the newest coins early on. This was kind of a main issue as well back in 2019 and 2020 when folks were trying to look for these West Point quarters, and you had your best bet that if you were anywhere remotely close to a Federal Reserve Bank, because that's a main hub for a lot of the new coins and just the reserve of our cash, there's 12 different centers all across the country. And the likelihood that you're going to see the newest stuff, because the Mint will inject all the Federal Reserve banks with the newest coins to be dispersed out into circulation, because they really don't hold back on previous years. They're going to be near the Fed Reserve Bank. So the 12 highlighted: Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Cleveland, Ohio, Richmond, Virginia, not Richmond, California, because that would suck, Atlanta, Georgia, Chicago, Illinois, St. Louis, Minneapolis, Kansas City, Dallas, and San Francisco. So those are your 12 main Federal Reserve banks that are highlighted. And so long as you're within earshot, like, where I'm at, I'm near the San Francisco Bay Area. However, I'm located way out in the middle of the state in Sacramento. It's about a 2.5 hour drive if I want to go from Sacramento. And believe me, I actually live further east along the Interstate 80 corridor than Sacramento. So that's, add in another like 40 minutes on top of that. And that's how far away I am to San Francisco. So when a lot of the newer coins come out, I probably won't see them until about, if we're looking at the beginning of the year on January 1st, and the first Lincoln cents dropped middle of February, we probably usually won't see them until about right around now, April, May, June, somewhere around there. And it's not about, hey, the Federal Reserve or the Mint is doing a piss poor job at circulating these. It's just for the longest time that we could imagine, this is how it's always been done. There hasn't been any dramatic change or anything like that in the last 100 years or whatever the case is. So with the Federal Reserve banks, I wasn't sure if you guys are aware, but on our paper money, they actually have the corresponding Federal Reserve. Now this is a $5 bill. So you see F6. F, I believe, is Atlanta. Atlanta. So, I mean, they on these, they designate them with a letter. So the letter designates to one of these specific 12 Federal Reserve banks. It's a lot easier to see on a dollar bill because on the black seal that you see there, it'll actually be Chicago or San Francisco, and it's designated by a number and not so much a letter. All right. So I wasn't sure if you guys knew that, but that's a quick little collector tidbit for you. It could be actually number 6. F6 is Atlanta. Sorry. So F6 is Atlanta. If you went to the federalreserveboard.gov or federalreserve.gov website, they actually tell you what number corresponds to each respective national bank. All right, so that's kind of in a way how you could have access to some of the newer coins. It's just really going to be, let's say if you're located in central Oklahoma, okay, so your best bets are going to be a drive to St. Louis, which is going to be like a day drive, I would imagine, Kansas City, maybe Dallas. Those are your three options there. And a little word of advice, just because you're close to a Mint facility does not necessarily mean that you're going to get, easier access to the coins. So if you're located in Denver, it's still not guaranteed that you're going to see brand new 2025 Denver coins of any type nearest the Mint. I believe they all have to go through a Federal Reserve Bank, and then they get distributed by armored cars to all of the individual banks, whether it's a Chase Bank or Bank of America, Wells Fargo, a credit union of some type, things like that. So, I would tell folks normally that, hey, if you're within kind of like a reasonable drive from any one Federal Reserve Bank, and let's say you bank with Chase, Chase is like nationwide, right? We could all make the argument that Chase is all over the place. Then go to a Chase Bank that's nearest, say, St. Louis, and you're going to have your best bet. And then you could kind of like dictate the terms with bank tellers and things like that. Do not be afraid to walk up to a bank teller and say, hey, I'm kind of a collector. I'm looking for some of these brand new 2025 dated coins. Do you have any? And then they'll, if they're nice enough, that's kind of the caveat. Some people have bad days, but it's Friday today, ladies and gents. There shouldn't be any reason why we shouldn't have a great day because it's Friday. A lot of people are off today. Unless they're being persnickety about it, oftentimes they're going to be more than helpful because they want to keep their jobs. Who doesn't? You do the work, you're kind, courteous, and you fill the world with love. Then you get what's coming back to you. So those are kind of like a couple of my personal tips. The other tip, where it's going to cost you more money to have access to these newer coins, is to buy on the secondary market. But a little word of caution: the premiums on them are through the roof. If you wanted to buy, for example, a brand new bank box of 2025 Lincoln Cents, either Philadelphia or Denver, minted, prepare to pay $200 to $300 for a $25 bank box. I hope it's worth it. I know. Speaking on my kind of like behalf, that I'd rather find these at the banks and then sell them online, and then cash in. They best represent the easiest way to monetize off of that stuff, rather than going through them and looking for like little nuances, like little min errors, die clashes, a new double to die, for example. Which, by the way, brand new one. Just discovered on a 2025 P Lincoln Cent. I believe it's Philadelphia. Yeah. Kind of a big deal. Along with a few really cool mid errors, strike throughs, and things like that. We have to take into consideration that there's different ways to skin a cat, right? That old saying. And with the hobby, it really depends on your self-fulfillment. What makes you happy? Does buying a bank box of this stuff and then going through them with the hopes of finding something pretty cool kind of your bag? It might be, Or is it simply just, finding caches of sealed bank boxes of brand new coin? It doesn't matter what date it is. Turning around and flipping them on eBay might be kind of like your appeal. And that's good too. That's some great money to be made there. I've made thousands of dollars over like the last 5 years since the beginning of the pandemic, just simply flipping bank boxes of Lincoln Cent. And it couldn't be easier. The only thing not easy about it is the shipping, because they're quite heavy. But as long as you double box them and send them out flat rate medium box, where you're sourced the box from the post office, that's going to be the easy way to go. So that's kind of like sourcing brand new coins and how to do it. Some of you are going to be in kind of a tight spot. You're living in like remote northern Montana, or perhaps, in some other location where you're probably maybe 300, 400, 500 miles away from any one of the Federal Reserve banks. Kind of a aberration. Los Angeles, California does not have a Federal Reserve Bank, but the San Francisco Fed Reserve prioritizes Los Angeles. So they instantly send down a bunch of coin to Southern California for that area. And that's why the first brand new 2025 Lincoln Cents, I wasn't sure if you guys are aware, were actually found in Southern California. Some of the biggest first sales of those, back when we were speculating if they were going to stop production, were found in Southern California, and there were people that were cashing in left and right. I don't think there was any affiliation with like the big fires that we just had in Southern California. Some people were saying, oh yeah, kind of a redeeming thing because they had the fires that they're going to send all these coins down there for people to cash in on. And I'm like, nah, I don't think that's it. And I don't think we ought to speculate on an event like that where a lot of people did lose their homes and all that. So that covers locating brand new coins. Let's talk a little bit about why this year matters in the grand scheme of things. I think everybody has their kind of like their mind, their eyes, their overall kind of like their scope in 2026, and that's all fine, well, and dandy. But you have to keep in mind they are going to produce a record amount of every one of these coins with the new designs, the dual dates, and all that great stuff for 2026. So why should we care about 2025? And historically, anytime that there's some sort of big numismatic event that falls the next year, it seems to be that everybody kind of forgets what happens the year before. Let's take, for example, 1998, right? 1998 was the final year of what we knew to be just a regular Washington quarter to be, right? It wasn't until that point that the Statehood Quarter Series was going to like blossom into this big numismatic event where it brought in new collectors, new, fresh, younger audiences into the hobby. And it was kind of like at that given time where the industry it kind of took an about face and went the other way, because for the longest time during the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, it was all these old heads that were collecting, all due respect to, my dad, who was one of those, my dad's friend, who's been a longtime collector on the East Coast. It was just like the show scene was predominantly dominated by a much older demographic. Same with the dealers. The dealers were probably averaged at about 60 years old. Can't fault that. That was the thing. But yeah, it was kind of a strange time where, nobody knew what to expect. Everybody was excited about the Statehood Quarter Series. But once the Statehood Quarter Series kind of took off, nobody gave a damn about the 1998 coins. Not just the Washington quarters, but all of them. The Lincoln cents, the nickels, the dimes, the quarters, the half dollars, you name it. It's like this big Statehood Quarter promotion, this big event, literally obliterated anything that we knew prior to 1999. You could go back, probably the whole 1990s was more or less an afterthought to a lot of collectors, because nobody really remembered anything meaningful coming out of the 90s other than the Statehood Quarter Series. There were a few little hot shots, little things here and there, like the 96W Roosevelt dime that could only be found in a mint set was like one of the few gleaming lights during the 90s. So we're kind of like there again in 2005. The American Women Quarter Series has been met with like a really mixed reaction. It was okay, but I could probably care less if I blinked my eye and not see it for anything other than just spending in a soda machine. I mean, come on. But what we've noticed, looking at the circulating coins production report on the US Mint website, is that they're producing a lot less quarters this year. So this is going to be one of those years where they're producing probably about 60% of the normal mintage of any other year of American Women Quarters, which is a program that started in 2022 and then going all the way to 2025. This is the last year. So it's a 4-year event. So people are going to be forgetting about that. The Roosevelt dime, ladies and gents, are going to be redesigned in 2026 from the ground up. People are going to forget about 2025 Roosevelt dimes. The Lincoln cents are okay. They're looking to be on par to another, because right now the overall mintage collectively between the Denver and Philadelphia is over $1 billion. All right, so they're tracking to hit that same normal $1.5 billion of the Lincoln cent production collectively between Denver and Philadelphia. So there doesn't seem to be anything wild there. However, there's been a new DDO or DDR that's been found on a 2025 Lincoln Shield set. There's been a few pretty neat mint errors. A couple of them found on the quarters, among a few other things. So I would say, just be mindful that 2025 it's kind of a unique year. It's kind of like a bridge to this big event that we're gonna have. Another thing that you guys probably aren't aware of, but probably a lot of you are, is that this is supposed to be the final year of the current candy $half design as we know it. Done. And then they're redesigning it 1 year only in 2026. I believe they're doing the Statue of Liberty obverse with the torch on the reverse. Again, that's all conceptualized design. We don't know what the final design is as of now, but that's what everybody in the CCAC, which is the committee for the U.S. Mint that does all the new designs, that's what they're leaning towards, which I think is going to be bitching as far as the design is concerned. And then they're going to go with a complete fresh redesign of the candy $half in 2027. So another thing to be on the lookout for, because guess what? They had already produced all the candy $half for the year, both Philadelphia and Denver's 13.8 million, and that's it of the outgoing design. The Denver being the low watermark of the two mints at 5.6 million, Philadelphia at 8.2 million. So right now, and by the way, guys, the 2025 $half are now available for sale on the US Mint website. It just went on sale May 6th. So if you were at all interested and you want to kind of like, maybe you had a thought in your mind that it might be a good idea to hold on to maybe a couple rolls of that. I'm thinking about buying some for myself, only because, people do get nostalgic about it, and they still have them. They're still available. You can buy them in 200 coin bags, which I wouldn't recommend because the quality is just really not there for the actual bags that have the coins loose in there. But the rolls, the the Philadelphia and Denver rolls, I think is where it's at right there. Price wise, if you're going to order the 2-roll set where there's $10 facing each roll, it's $36.25. Product limit is only 26,250, and it is currently still available right now. So something to keep in mind. Final year of the outgoing candy $half design. People might get nostalgic over it. Although we won't see any like realized premium on the secondary market for such things. Probably 5-10 years out. All right. So, just want to let you guys know that is the case. But, those are a few things as to why we should care about 2025. It's going to be, a forgotten year. And as far as like memory serves, with these type of years that come up, a few things happen. There's less sealed supply of coins for the previous year, based off of some big numismatic event. 1998 BU rolls of any sort are kind of scarce. There's not a lot of them out there. If you wanted a BU roll of 1998 Washington quarters, you're probably going to end up paying 30, 40, 50 bucks a roll. It's not cheap. And that's with Washington with the spaghetti hair design on there. So, yeah, I mean, something to keep in mind. Don't overextend yourself buying into 2025 coinage. I think this is more of a conversation of casual flex, casual investment. Buy a 2-roll set. I'm actually gonna add one to bag right now and buy one of the candy $half. And I've never bought the candy $half. I never really cared up until probably right now when I found out they're going to redesign it. And I think it's more for me a nostalgia play than it is a flip. Okay, because at the end of the day, if I held on to these and sold them in 5 years' time when we're in the middle of a new design and they're still not minting a whole lot of them, these will probably jump up to like $60 for the 2 rolls. And it's not something that I care to hinge a lot of money into investing to when it's, it's like, I don't want to heavily leverage my retirement to get some of this shit. I just want a couple rolls for me. And then I'll have the peace of mind knowing that whenever I'm ready to get out of this hobby, which by the way is never, until my dying day, that, these things will have some sort of value at the end. And whether or not, either one of my daughters, they end up taking these things, opening them up and looking through them themselves and then sending them to the bank, it really doesn't matter. I'll probably be long gone by the time that happens. But, the cool thing about investing into coins is that we always have a monetary value of some sort at its minimum. You're not paying $45 for an item when the raw materials ends up being worth about 80 cents, which we have a hard time kind of like accepting that in this world as people kind of like go through their retail therapy phase, and part of their retail therapy is not coins, then that's kind of a problem. There's nothing to really fall back on, and people spend tens of thousands of dollars retail therapying the crap out of themselves, buying like nice clothes and all this stuff, which have no really, other than you saying that you need it and you like the look of them, have no realistic intrinsic value outside of that. So, that's why I wanted to talk about kind of again, man, I've been doing some ranty videos here lately, but, as we inch closer to 2026 and we're like really pumped up and the blood is like flowing and it's just like going to the next level, we're going to be having more comparison discussions about what we're going to expect next year to compare to what we're seeing now, and really kind of speculating on some sort of like investment play here where it might seem like a good idea. Again, the U.S. Mint is going to continue to pull out more stuff between now and the end of the year. They're not stopping at all. They're a merchant Goliath in the numismatic space. And, while we don't agree with some of the pricing practices and some of the suspect kind of designs and product that they send out, they are still front and center for driving the collectibles arena of the hobby. So that's what I wanted to talk about. I'm your host, Sean with Blue Ridge Silverhound. We'll be on here in a few hours with another just amazing dealer liquidation sale on Whatnot through my local coin dealer. I'm going to be the host of that sale. So come join us. We got a whole bunch of people bookmarked for the show. It starts at 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4:30 Eastern. And a lot of great deals to be had. Lots of big giveaways. And it's going to be fun. So hope to see you guys there. Peace. Love you guys. Keep on collecting. It's a lot of fun. And I'll see you next time.